So as you all know, this is interactive live here and then on Zoom out there. So there are many people zooming in to watch Michael's presentation today. So we're going to try to keep it as interactive as possible. So first of all, thank you to everyone here coming here in person, and then everyone else online watching. So this all started really about a year ago. We did our first presentation with Michael here in Cayman to launch NCB, both the bank and the investment arm, NCB Capital Markets. And really with the vision of becoming a world-renowned bank, boutique investment firm here on island. So we did that event and we got all ready to go and we launched. And then as everyone knows, COVID kind of happened. So we were gearing up, we had a lot of plans, but even though COVID happened, we continued to push forward and continued to make leaps and bounds and really push forward with what we wanted to do. So I'm happy to say that we've accomplished tons in that time frame and even more. So this event is really an add-on to what we were doing in that launch originally. So myself, I'm Alessandro. A lot of you people already know me. I'm the portfolio manager here in Cayman and the wealth advisor for some of you here and our other clients. At the back of the room, we have Cheyenne Calderon. She's our private banker, and any of our clients, she's the one that did all your paperwork to open up your account. We got Theana Grant, she's our associate, and Maria Baynard back there is another regional wealth advisor. So in Toronto, many of you already know of Tuula, our managing director. She's been coming back and forth through Cayman, and she's introduced herself to many of you already. She's going to be zooming in with us now. When I say that we want to be a world-class boutique bank and investment arm in Cayman, it really comes to the leadership of Tuula, who comes with over 25 years experience in the banking and investment world. She led Scotiabank, their wealth arm in Canada. And for the last year, she's done wonders for us here in Cayman. So, hey Tuula, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Alessandro, and thank you for that kind introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. I can't tell you how nice it is to have so many of you live in a room. It seems like forever since I've been there. But despite not being there in person, I've definitely been there in spirit. And as Alessandro said, we have had a laser focus on propelling the business forward and expanding all of our capabilities and sophistication despite COVID and travel restrictions. The travel restrictions have only really impeded me in being there. But again, we've been working closely with everyone, many of you, despite the fact not being there in person. But I will be there next month. There's a direct flight that's going to be out of Toronto. So I look forward to seeing many of you in person and continuing our discussions. So I know everyone is eager to hear today's presentation. So it's my pleasure to have the opportunity to introduce Mr. Michale Lee Chin. I know many of you know Michael and you know his background, but I always think it's really important to set the stage and his presentation, with his background and some of his incredible accomplishments. So I'd like to share a few things about Michael just before I turn it over to him. So Michale Lee Chin is widely regarded as a visionary entrepreneur whose philosophy of doing well and doing good has resulted in extraordinary business success and inspiring philanthropic initiatives. Michael is founder and chairman of Portland Holdings, which many of you are familiar with. It is a privately held investment company that manages public equity and private equity and has an ownership interest in a collection of diversified businesses operating globally in sectors, and I've had to make note of these because there's so many of them, including financial services, insurance, consumer goods, media, tourism, agriculture, real estate development, and targeted radionuclide therapy. I'm not sure there's many sectors left after that, but it's a very comprehensive list. Portland is committed to building strong Indigenous businesses. And equally important, these businesses must also seek to improve the social well-being of the communities in which they operate. Among his many, many personal accomplishments, we could have a whole presentation on those alone, but I'll be brief. Michael has received Doctor of Laws degrees from a number of distinguished universities in Canada and Jamaica. He has been profiled in Forbes, Fortune, Canadian Business, Black Enterprise, and Time magazines. From 2011 to 2016, Michael held the esteemed position of Chancellor of Wilfrid Laurier University. In 2008, he was awarded the Order of Jamaica, one of the country's highest national honors for outstanding service in business and philanthropy. And in 2016, he was appointed chair of the Government of Jamaica's Economic Growth Council, also known as EGC, in an effort to bolster economic development in the country. We are thrilled to have Michael with us today to impart his incredible knowledge. So please join me in welcoming Michale Lee Chin. Mr. Lee Chin, over to you.
Thank you very much, Tuula. I'm looking at the audience, the live audience, and I'm envious. I haven't seen so many people together, not social distancing, in such a long time, and I'm envious. I'm in Canada, and Cayman, I just have to say kudos to Cayman for doing such a wonderful job at managing this epidemic. Today, what I'd like to do is just give you an overview as to our perspective on wealth creation. In 1977, I was selling mutual funds in Canada, and I was 26 then. So as a young person, age 26, I knew no one who had money, but I had to find people who had money to sell mutual funds to. So I'd cold call. So when someone would say to me, Mike, it's okay, you can come to my home and I'll listen to you. I felt such a debt of gratitude that when I got to their home, sat at the kitchen table, I'd ask myself the question, what is the highest value I can give to this family here tonight? What is that one thing that would make them, would transform their life? And the answer kept coming back to me, Mike, make them wealthy. Oh, I'm an engineer, I'm a civil engineer. So the sequel question was, is there a formula that if you practice consistently, the only outcome is wealth? That's the formula, the question I asked myself. At the time, 1977, we didn't have Google, so I couldn't Google it. But today, if you Google it, nothing comes up, but except a bunch of books, people trying to become wealthy, selling books. So that was my quest as a young man, to figure out this formula, if there was one, to create wealth. And by 1978, 1 year later, I'd figured it out. And I'm an engineer, so I go through a process. Whenever I have an issue that I'm trying to solve, the process goes like this. I observe. I create a hypothesis from my observations. I stress test the hypothesis. If it holds true, I codify it, and then I hardwire it so it becomes who I am. So that's what I did by 1978. I broke that code as to how wealth is created in the real world. And that is the topic of our conversation today. But before we get into the how, I'd like to show you some proof points that this isn't just talk. This isn't just some guy selling books. I don't have a book to sell. I had to live it. And I wanted to lead by example. So people could point and say, he has done it, and there's a methodology, it's transparent, and I can practice it also. And if I practiced it, the outcome is going to be similar. So we're going to talk about that today. So, okay, so Portland Holdings, Portland Holdings, let me give you a slight overview of Portland Holdings. As Tuula said, it's a privately held company. That's my holding company. Founded 30 years ago, and we have assets under influence. We influence assets of over 20 billion US dollars. I'm the president and chairman of Portland Holdings, and our mantra or purpose is to do well and do good by owning extraordinarily high quality businesses. And as you can see, some of the associated companies will include Clarion NCB Financial Group, which include Guardian Holdings, Portland Private Equity, Portland Investment Council, Mandeville Private Client, and as you see, Guardian, as you see there, Guardian. So we have the gamut of experience. Not only do we have the experience at owning business directly, turning around businesses, which was NCB, starting a business, which was AIC, the first company I started. And the business, as Tuula mentioned, range in sectors that would not only include financial services, but as new as targeted radionuclide therapy. So the significance of track record. Why is track record important? You know, every time I look at a prospectus, the prospectus says, past performance is no indication of future performance. But that's only relative to a security. In terms of real life, as Warren Buffett said, the past record is the single best guide. The best judgment we can make about competence is not what other people thought at the time, but the track record. We already have a batting average. Charlie Munger, Mr. Buffett's sidekick, there's a whole line of thought that the paper record of an individual has more predictive power of how he will perform in the future than any amount of face-to-face. The track record is of eminent importance. So let's talk about track record. There's there's a Greek mythological figure called a unicorn. And it is so rare that most of us have never seen one. In business, a unicorn is defined as a private business that has just surpassed $1 billion US in market valuation. It's now worth over 1 billion. Of all the major institutions in the world, as per bullet point number 3, which would include BlackRock, Fidelity, OMERS, institutional investors, 74% of them are associated with just one. So to be associated with one unicorn is a very rare occurrence that most people work a lifetime and then never accomplish. If it's rare to be associated with one, how much rarer is it to be associated with 2? It's not twice as rare. It's a lot more than twice as rare. How about 3? How about 4? Well, only 10% of the best institutions in the world are associated with 4 unicorns. So let's talk about our track record as a unicorn investor. Our past unicorns would include AIC. That's a business I started in 1987. It's in the industry, asset management industry in Canada. Second unicorn was Columbus Communications, telecommunications business. And in Cayman, you are the beneficiary of Columbus Communication in terms of Flow. I'm the co-founder of Flow right here in Canada. Myself and John Risley started that business in 2005. And it now operates in the Caribbean and Central America. Our current that's unicorn number 2. Our current unicorns would include ITM, which is in the business of molecular precision oncology. We invested in 2018. We bought into this business when it was at a market valuation of 350 million euro. 2 years later, it's over $1 billion in value. Our influence, we have a board seat in that company, a German company, headquarters in Munich. Number 4 unicorn is InterEnergy, headquarters in the United Kingdom, operations in Caribbean and Latin America, and we have a board seat. So we have unicorns that would span geography, including Canada, the Caribbean, Germany, and you'll see here Australia. In addition to the 4 unicorns that we're associated with, we're also associated with 2 multi-billion-dollar companies. The first one being the National Commercial Bank of Jamaica. It's in banking. We invested in it in 2002. It's headquartered in Jamaica, and its operations would be throughout the Caribbean, including Cayman, including Clarion. Clarion is a subsidiary of the National Commercial Bank of Jamaica. Clarion and NCB Cayman. We have a major stake. Telix, again, healthcare, molecular precision oncology is the industry headquarters in Australia. So in summary, to be associated with 1 unicorn is magical, but 4 and 2 multi-billion mutual public companies. And the only reason why these are not unicorns is because they're publicly traded. So it disqualifies them from the unicorn moniker. So the big question is, how was that done? And the methodology, is the methodology replicable? So can you keep doing it? That's the most important thing to you guys here today. How is it done, and is it replicable? Well, I started by saying by 1978, I figured out how wealth is created in the real world by the process that I went through. So here's what I concluded in 1978, and all I've done is simply lived these conclusions. As I said, I hardwired them, so that's how they became who I am. So these principles are embedded in my DNA, and that's all I've done. But Mr. Buffett once said, what I do is simple, not easy to execute over the long run. So I have broken the characteristics of wealth creators into two segments. The first is the 5 laws of wealth creation, which are the laws of investor behavior. You observe wealthy people, and these are the 5 things that they did to have created their wealth. Number 1, just, and by the way, audience, you can just think about, as I'm going through this list, think about any wealthy person you know, someone who has created the wealth, not married into it or not inherited it, but someone who created it. So think about a wealthy person. And I'm going to define the 5 things that wealthy person did to have become wealthy. Number 1, that person you're thinking of owns a few, not too many, high-quality businesses. Number 2, that person thoroughly understands those few high-quality businesses. Number 3, those few high-quality businesses are domiciled in strong long-term growth industries. Number 4, that person you're thinking of has used other people's money to have created wealth. And lastly, 5thly, that person you're thinking of has simply held these few businesses for the long run. Ladies and gentlemen, that's how wealth is created in the real world from the perspective of investors. Now, so the logical question is, the next time someone comes to you and say, look, I have a great investment for you, what should you do? It's simple. Reach and pull out your list of 5 and say, okay, tell me, how is this investment that you're proposing a high quality business? Number 2, is it something I can understand? If I can't understand it, I am either not going to be interested because it's too complicated, or I have to know someone who understands it. So I can that person, someone I trust who can understand it. Number 3, is this proposal that you have for me, this business proposal, this asset, is it domiciled in a strong long-term growth industry? And 4th, is it using other people's money prudently? And 5thly, is it a business I really want to hold for the long run? And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, these are the characteristics of a true investor. Anything outside of this is speculation. So I'm sure the person you're thinking of, I would have hit it the nail on the head in terms of those 5 characteristics. Now, again, keep thinking about that person, that wealthy person. And I'm now gonna not only describe the ownership attitude, I'm now gonna describe the characteristics of the business that owner owns. Number 1, that business is run by an owner-operator. Number 2, ownership is heavily concentrated. Ownership of the business is heavily concentrated in a few hands. Number 3, the key shareholder, there's personal identification of the business between the business and the owner, and the owner and the business. As an example, when I say Apple, whose face comes to mind? Steve Jobs. When I say Steve Jobs, which company comes to mind? Apple. So there's personal identification between owner and business and the owner. Number 4, the management style for that business that is owned by the person you're thinking of would be described as autocratic. It certainly isn't a democracy. Number 5, that business will be described as entrepreneurial in terms of its management style. There's also low turnover of management. Periodically, when the business makes a profit, it has to allocate the profit by a new plant, another company, a subsidiary, etc. If the allocation is a good one, the net worth of the business increases. If it's a bad one, the net worth decreases. In other words, the risk reward is symmetrical, tantamount to flip a coin, heads the business wins, tails the business loses. So it's symmetrical risk reward ratio. Number 8, the business, the attitude of the business, it sets goals for the long term. It's not concerned about quarterly short-termism. Number 5, the focus of the board is singular, growth, growth, growth. And lastly, validation of success for the business would include fundamentals like sales growth, market share, and margins. So these are the 10 characteristics of the business that are wealth creating characteristics owned by people who have created wealth. So ladies and gentlemen, Warren Buffett once said, when he was asked, how come you created so much wealth from scratch? You must be a great capital allocator. He said, his answer was, I'm a better investor because I'm a businessman. And conversely, I'm a better businessman because I'm an investor. The 5 laws of wealth creation would define investors' behavior. The 10 characteristics of wealth creating businesses would define the business person, the characteristics of wealth creating business owned by business people. So that is the secret sauce. It's not so much of a secret as to why we have been able to produce the 4 unicorns and the 2 billion, multi-billion-dollar businesses. It's not a secret. It's because we absolutely have committed to these principles, and anything and everything we do must pass through the sieve of these principles that will enable our behavior to be consistent over the long run. And all that has happened is behaving in the same way consistently over the long run. You get the benefit of compounding. And the outcome that you saw, which I led off with, 4 unicorns and 2 publicly multi-billion-dollar companies, are a function of sticking to the framework, 5 laws and 10 characteristics. So that's how we did it. So our wealth creating principles are sector agnostic, meaning it's relevant to, well, we have done it in sectors which would include asset management, banking, energy, targeted radionuclide therapy, insurance, telecommunications. So it's sector agnostic. So the principles are principles. Our domain experience and also geographically agnostic. It has been, as I said, it's been done all throughout the world, from Australia to Germany to the Caribbean. So that's the basis for how we make decisions, and the basis for the outcome is what you see is a function of our methodology. Now, the second law of the 5 laws of wealth creation is that you have to, the third law is we ensure the businesses are in strong long-term growth industry. Now, I'm not Michael Jordan. I don't want to be able, I can't jump over 10-foot hurdles, but I can walk over 1-foot hurdle easily. So what is lost on most investors is that they don't really put enough emphasis on the long-term nature of the industry in which they are investing. They put more emphasis on the stock or business that they're buying, and not enough emphasis on the long-term nature of the industry. I'm going to suggest that one has to make sure that the industry in which you're investing is going to be around for the long run and growing, because a rising tide will lift all boats. So the industry dynamics are most important. So we're going to talk about how to identify a long-term growth industry, and how, in fact, I'm just going to give you a case study of my thinking throughout the years. So I'm a member of the baby boomer generation, and that cohort would be straddled by children who were born between 1946 and 1964. So you can see the first diagram says baby boomers coming of age. Now in the 80s, 1983, I was 32 years old. I was born in 1951. So at 32 years old, what do most 32-year-old families, what are they doing? They're consuming. They're buying a house, car, washing machine, etc. They're setting up home. So we had the largest percentage of the North American population represented by this cohort, the baby boomer cohort, doing the same thing at the same time, consuming. So in the 80s, we had a consumption boom. Now, so I was standing in 1983, I was standing in the middle of that consumption boom. And I thought, I was 32. I thought to myself, okay, I think I've identified a long-term trend here, because all I have to do is follow the behavior of this cohort of the population, because they're such a large cohort. So the metaphor here is the anaconda swallowing the cow. You can see the cow as it progresses, as it is digested over time through the anaconda. So the first wave, the first bulge is caused by the baby boomer, is one of consumption and spending. The second wave, so now that was in the 80s. In 1983, I thought to myself, what's the coming wave? In other words, I was 32. What do 40-year-old people do? What are their angsts? Well, they're thinking now, I need to retire in dignity. So what's going to be coming is we're going to have the largest percentage of the North American population behaving the same way at the same time, thinking about retirement, and therefore they're going to be saving massively and investing massively. So that's a coming wave. As Wayne Gretzky said, you want to be where the puck is going. So now I've identified a coming wave back in 1983. And I said, now how am I going to take advantage of that coming wave? Well, I can buy a bank. They are aggregators of people's savings, but they also have loans. So the bank isn't really a perfect vehicle, because you can have the banks get loan losses also. I can buy an insurance company. That is not perfect either, because they have underwriting losses. Or the bullseye for this would be to invest in wealth management companies. That's the bullseye. And by the way, because they are fee income generating, they don't have on-balance sheet risks. So I said, okay, I'm going to focus on investing today for the coming boom that's coming. I want to be where the puck is going. So I started buying shares of one company, Mackenzie Financial Corporation. In fact, in 1983, I went out as a young man, and with that, framework in mind, the framework that I just mentioned to you, and this industry identified, I went out as a young man, 83, and I borrowed $500,000 and invested it into one asset management company, Mackenzie Financial Corporation. A lot of you in the room today are Canadians. You know Mackenzie. So I bought Mackenzie in 1983, 1%. So that investment in 83 went from $1 to $7 by 1987. So 500,000 became 3.5 million. That gave me my start. Then I started a business based on this premise. I started a fund, a mutual fund by the name of the AIC Advantage Fund that had 60% of its assets in asset management businesses. And that fund became the best performing fund in Canada. And the business AIC went on to grow to 15 billion in assets, managing money for over 1 million Canadians, starting with a simple premise, identifying a coming wave that is predictable and knowable and predictable, same thing. So now brings us to, and by the way, in retrospect, when I first invested in the wealth management industry, built a business around it by identifying the second wave, the industry in totality had $5 billion in assets under management. Today, the industry has 1.6 trillion, which is 300 times. So investing, you don't need to be making too many decisions. You just need to make a few right decisions. And if you want to make a few right decisions, you have to get the industry right. So today, I'm now 70. Oh my gosh, how time flies. So today, what do 70-year-old people think about? I want to live for a long time. So healthcare is what the baby boomers are thinking about. But the largest percentage of the population in North America thinking one thought: healthcare, stay alive. So there's a coming healthcare boom. So the question is, how are we going to participate in that boom? Well, we can buy a pharmaceutical company, we can buy a nursing home, or we can say, okay, within that general set, are there any subsets within the healthcare industry that will be even a stronger growth, that will demonstrate stronger growth characteristics? Yes. Unfortunately, cancer is going to be a very strong growth industry because of the demographics of our population. So, within cancer, there are two modalities. Within oncology, there are two modalities of treatment. Number one, external beam radiation, which basically fries your body. And number two, chemotherapy, which basically poisons your body. So those are really blunt instruments that have been around for the last 70, 80, 90 years. And they're therefore ripe for disruption. So in oncology, we have, there's a huge tsunami of a tide. And there's also a disruption possibility caused by the fact that the treatment for cancer, the treatments are archaic and blunt instruments. So what's next? Well, I just basically narrated the slides. You can see 91 here. This is an article taken from the Globe and Mail. AIC clones top money managers. Mr. Lee Chin says the baby boom generation will soon start planning for retirement, a demographic trend that favors money managers. Our assumption is that mutual fund companies will do better than the funds they manage in the long run. Report on Business, Globe and Mail, November 9, 1991. Another article from the Toronto Star, March 22nd, 1992. I said, as reported by, as I said, the Toronto Star, find the tide that's rising. And whether your canoe is the Queen Mary or a small canoe, your boat is a small canoe or a Queen Mary, you are going to go up. As I said, the industry in 1983 went from 5 billion to 1.6 trillion, 300 times. Why asset management? Because there's great operational and financial leverage. It was highly scalable, low risk, as assets are off balance sheet, no receivables, high return on equity. After recovering fixed costs, every dollar of revenue has 100% margin. It is the best business model in the world. And we just started a fund that invested in other wealth management businesses. So today, as I said, the third wave is healthcare. Now, there's growing incidence of cancer in both Canada and the United States, and that is going to continue to grow exponentially. So as I said, chemotherapy and radiation therapy, they are the two modalities that we now have, but these are very archaic. What is going to disrupt it? Targeted radionuclide therapy, which basically, ladies and gentlemen, is treating cancer at the cellular level and only only zapping those cells that are cancerous, leaving adjacent cells, healthy cells, alone, untouched. So how does this work? Well, certain cancerous cells, they have a receptor on them. And what we do, we find the protein or peptide molecule that is attracted to that particular receptor. And once we've identified the molecule, we know the molecules will go to the cancerous cells only. The metaphor would be iron filing and a magnet. So once we have that molecule, the peptide molecule or protein molecule that is attracted to the particular cancer, we now attach to it an isotope by the name of gallium-68. And the peptide molecule takes the gallium-68 to the cancerous cells. And the cancerous, and therefore the gallium-68 can now be lit up, can now show up on a PET scan, as you see in the diagram here. Now, once we can see the cancerous cells wherever they are in your body, we know we can treat it. So it's not hit or miss like chemotherapy or radiation therapy. We know we can treat it once we can see it, because seeing it is proof perfect that the receptor is there on that particular cancer. So what we now do is swap out the gallium-68 isotope and replace it with another isotope by the name of lutetium-177. The peptide molecule takes the lutetium-177 to the cancer wherever they are in your body, and the lutetium emits beta rays, which are 2 millimeters in length, and zaps only those cancer cells. You can see here, this particular patient in February of 2016 this is now for prostate cancer. This person's PSA level was how much? 356. Normal is less than 3. After the treatment, by October, the PSA level had fallen to 0. And you can see the cancer. The first diagram shows cancer all over the patient's body. By October, between February and October, there was no more cancer. The cancer had metastasized from the prostate bed right through the bones and the lungs. And by October, no more cancer. It was totally eradicated. By July 2017, the same. No more cancer. So, targeted precision oncology or molecular target precision oncology is the new way of treating cancer. It will also disrupt. It will also disrupt the existing modalities, and it's precise. We're going straight to the molecular level. You can see the standard approach, treatment mainly validated through special analysis of clinical studies, typically limited prolongation of life at rising and unsustainable treatment costs. That's what we now have today. High side effects, low quality of life. A tailored approach, TRT. Treatment can immediately be validated through targeted imaging and companion diagnostics. It's called theranostics, a combination of treatment and diagnosis. Typically, high prolongation of life after declining and sustainable treatment costs, and low side effects, high quality of life. And this is very effective against neuroendocrine type cancers and prostate cancer, and more research is being done to identify other cancers that it is applicable to. Now, as I said, this industry is currently, within the early innings. But you have some big players who are getting into it. You can see Bayer, Ipsen, Novartis. They spent collectively $9 billion to get into this sector. You can see where we are. Novartis in 2018 spent $6 billion buying two companies, one AAA and two Endocyte. Novartis sees this as their next blockbuster treatment. So you can see there's some quotations from the CEO of Novartis. Basically, he's saying this is the future of Novartis. So, as I said, I started off by saying we have invested in two companies that became, one was a unicorn, and the other, because it's public, it is Telix. It's not classified as a unicorn, but we invested in both companies early, and they're now both worth over $1 billion in this targeted radionuclide therapy. And Telix, by the way, is publicly traded. It's traded on the Australian Stock Exchange. So, in summary, ladies and gentlemen, wealth creation is not arcane. It's a matter of having a framework that makes sense, that is verifiable by what you see in the real world. You don't need to reinvent the framework. It's there for you. It's transparent. I just went through it with you. I gave you the evidence of the application of the framework for the last 30 years. And the evidence is incontrovertible and it's relevant. The methodology is, as I said, sector agnostic and geographically agnostic. So I'll ask you a question. The next time someone comes to you and says, I have a great investment for you, what should you do? Thank you very much.
Sweet. Thank you so much, Michael, for that. Now we're going to open it up to questions, both here and live on Zoom.
Okay.
Any questions here? Are there any in there, Shane? Okay, so it's coming up. I would say there was a thought process that
Alessandro, I have a
good.
question that's come in through to me.
Yep.
Hopefully, can you still hear me? Okay, fantastic. And actually, I love this question because I've been pondering some of the same things given recent announcements. And this question for you, Michael, is given the apparent wish to exit on the part of the dominant Canadian banks in the region, how do you see the future potential for growing a wealth management business catering to high net worth, investable assets of 2 million plus, families in the Caribbean? And how do you see NCB and Clarion's respective roles in that project, next steps and timelines?
Well, there is there's three preconditions that I abide by before I really get excited about a wealth creating opportunity. The first is there must be a difference between perception and reality. You can't create wealth unless there is that delta. The second is there must be inefficiencies, and the third is there must be a lack of equity, a lack of capital. Once those three preconditions are present, you have it's a fertile ground for creating a lot of wealth. Now, clients throughout the world are getting more wealthy. Clients throughout the world are still concerned about protecting their capital, which would include minimizing taxes legally. So the fact that some of the major banks are receding from Cayman or Bermuda because of their perceived risk in terms of AML and the financing of terrorism presents an opportunity for those who are committed to the region. NCB is committed to the region. We are from the region, so we can't go anywhere. We just have to deal with those issues, the laws. All we need to know is tell us the rules and we'll abide by them. We can't go anywhere. We're not going anywhere. So we just have to stick within the rules. And that's what we have done. And we, therefore, by the virtue of a lot of the major institutions receding, it provides an opportunity for us to build, to grow, and become even stronger.
All right, we have one more question online. What are, sorry, which one was it? All right. Mr. Lee Chin, what is your take on crypto?
Okay, remember, go back to the person you're thinking about. And remember I said, think of a wealthy person. Remember? I started off my presentation by saying, think of a wealthy person. How did that person become wealthy? That person became wealthy by owning a few high quality businesses that he or she understands, that are in a strong long-term growth industry, that he or she has used other people's money to improve the rate of return, and simply, lastly, that person has held those few businesses for the long run. So that's the framework. So now let us so once you have a framework, answers become easy. The answers to questions become easy. So firstly, and as I said, I know I'm going to bring my framework out and superimpose that question against the background of the 5 laws. Number 1, am I buying a strong high quality business here? How do I know it's strong, high quality? What track record do I have to determine whether it's high quality or not? I don't know. So does it pass or fail? Law number 1. Secondly, do I understand it? Do I understand the nuances of it? Yes or no? If I know, I'm not interested. Thirdly, is it in a strong long-term growth industry? Well, it's not. I don't know because it's not as predictable as the one I know. Number 4, etc. So on the first 3 counts, personally, I would be shy to invest in crypto because from my framework, I wouldn't be the right person to be investing in crypto because it's not in my strong suit. I stick within my strong suit by virtue of the 5 laws. So I'm sure I'll be missing many things, many opportunities, but I don't care. I know what my strong suit is, and I stay in my lane.
All right, our next question. What are the leading companies mentioned for the molecular targeted precision oncology for investment?
The leading company, well, ITM, which is a company I am on the board of directors of. I had to make sure I am on the board so that I can understand it before we invest in it. And I think we own 5% of ITM, but it's private. But ITM is really, if you go on the website, you will see that it is basically the infrastructure to this entire industry, TRT industry. It's like the traffic cop. Any company that wants to get into TRT, precision oncology, they have to deal with ITM. So it's at a wonderful place. The Australian company, Telix, that is public. So that's available to anybody, for anybody to invest in. And they are developing an increasing pipeline of therapies in the same TRT space.
All right, another one here. For millennials, should we invest in the same type of industries based on consumer habits of our generation, similar to what you did?
For millennials, Generation X, whomever, baby boomers, it's the same. You're trying to create wealth. You create wealth by abiding by the 5 laws and the 10 characteristics of wealth-creating businesses, whether the businesses are private or publicly traded. In fact, you may get the impression, which I don't want to leave you with, that this methodology is relevant only to private companies. No, when we invest in a public business, the same 10 criteria, we look for the same 10 criteria in public businesses. So we look for public businesses that are more private-like in their character, but they just happen to be public. So Apple under Steve Jobs would have been perfect. It would have met all of those 10 characteristics. So the caveat or the watch out here is just don't buy public businesses, just don't buy a stock. On this, if the framework makes sense, make sure the public or private businesses you buy meet those characteristics, those 10 characteristics, and then you're minimizing your risk in so doing. So whether you're a millennial or otherwise, it doesn't matter. You're trying to create wealth. All you're trying to do is increase your rate of return, get a good rate of return, because wealth is created by abiding by the future value formula. FV, the future value of your wealth, is a function of PV, which is the amount of money you have working for you today, times 1 plus R being the rate of return to the nth power. N is time. So we just have to make sure we maximize PV, the amount of capital you have working for you today. We maximize the rate of return R, which I spent most of this presentation talking about, finding a great business in a strong long-term growth industry. And lastly, we maximize time. The best time to start would have been yesterday.
All right, is there anyone in the room? Any questions?
Okay, yeah.
Thank you. Michael, thanks for the nice presentation. I believe we learn from failures as much as we learn from success. Would you be willing to share with us one investment that didn't work and you learned from your failure?
Very much so. I'm happy to, because I want to make sure I remember it every day. So, in 2014, I thought that is a brilliant idea, because the brilliant idea was, these production and exploration oil companies, they were generating consistent dividends. And the dividend flow would have been approximately 7-8%. And you had dividends being paid quarterly, in some cases monthly. And there was also capital gain with these companies. So I had this brilliant idea that I can borrow at 2% and get a dividend of 8%. So it's a carry. So I went out, started a fund, and did that. And it was 2014. And it was right at the peak of the oil boom. So what happened subsequently was oil went from 100 to, I think it troughed at around 23. It's now about 60. But in the interim, all of those exploration companies cut their dividend and their share price went down 90%. Because in Canada, we had even the oil flow was incarcerated, right? So that was my biggest mistake. And I kicked myself, because for decades, I said to myself, Mike, your framework does not permit you to invest in commodities, because the first law of wealth creation is own a few high quality businesses. Even if you have a high quality exploration and production business in the oil industry, it doesn't matter, because you don't control the price of oil. That's a commodity. So someone in Saudi Arabia could have a discovery that drops the price of oil from X to Y, and you're running a beautiful business, and you get zapped by an extraneous force, commodity price, that you have no control over. So your beautiful business that you have studied for the last 10 decades or 2 decades, doesn't matter, manage it properly, is ambushed by something that you didn't control. So commodities, the moral of that story, Mike, you violated your principles, you got zapped, go back into your lane. So I freely tell that story because it reminds me of what I did. I suffered my losses, I take my lashes, and I'll never invest in commodities again. Because they don't pass the test of the 5 laws. A high quality business, irrespective of how good the business itself is, it can be zapped by the industry. And in the commodities business, the winner in the commodities business is always the lowest cost producer.
Any other questions here in the audience? Cheyenne, anything online?
No, I think we're good.
So, before we wrap it up, I just wanted to say that, first of all, thank you, Michael, for going through the presentation and giving us your insight on investing. But for everyone here in Cayman and online, we at NCB Cayman, we use those principles that Michael's used for 40 plus years in developing portfolios for clients and really sticking to our guns and how we're investing for those clients. We call it wealth creation over wealth management. And today, when you present a private equity opportunity from someone who's done 4 unicorns and 2 multi-billion-dollar public companies, giving our clients access to something like that is what makes us different at NCB. So all our clients that we work with, they'll have an opportunity to invest in ITM specifically. Everyone here, if you're interested and you want to talk about your portfolio or private equity opportunities like ITM and you're interested in maybe adding that and you liked what you heard today, love to have that discussion with you. Because these are really the add-ons to a portfolio or satellites to a portfolio that drive value and create wealth to the next level. So those are the things we believe. Michael?
Yes.
I actually have a question, if I can put you on the spot. Yes, I'm an employee, so I think I can do this, right?
No, you're fired.
I'll take the chance because what you have to say right now affects a lot of people in the room because we know them personally. We live with them, we know their families, we're on the island, we're with them a lot. If you're just starting out investing, you don't have a lot of savings. You've gone through that first kind of baby boom cycle where you've got your home in order, you've got a good career started, you're starting to save your money. If you've never invested before, or you have a very small investment portfolio, what is the mindset that they don't have access to do investment trading or get access to these deals? Yes, they have it now through us. What would be your comment and what we should think about in investing, even if we only have $10,000 or $20,000 and you're starting out?
The principles are the same, whether you have 10,000 or 10 billion or $10. Principles are the same. Warren Buffett, when he was asked, Warren, how come you're so wealthy? What did you do, really? He said, to be successful over the long run doesn't require stratospheric IQ. Ooh, thank God for that. Unusual business insight or any particular inside information. What's needed is a sound intellectual framework. And secondly, the ability to prevent your emotions from corroding your framework. So I would say to anybody, whether you're a baby or you are a mature investor, framework, let's talk about your framework first. That's the reason why I anchor this presentation in framework, the 5 laws of investor behavior. So young person, find a few high quality businesses that you understand that are in strong long-term growth industries, not too many that are using, you want to use other people's money. So you have a home, you know what, you need PV to work for you. You need to have some assets working for you. So use your home and borrow against your home to invest. But once you do that, you have to make sure what you invest in is is very high quality, right? But you have to use leverage. So don't be shy to use leverage, but make sure you use leverage. When you use leverage, it's invested in high quality assets that you understand, or you know someone where you're confident in who understands it. So again, framework for all of us is important. As I said to you, when the question was asked, what was your biggest failure? I defaulted back to framework and answered the question in terms of framework. So it's framework first. And the sooner we start abiding by the principles of wealth creation, the better it is for us, because we avoid making mistakes.
Thank
So
you.
what I want to say when I stuck my hand up was the following. Another uniqueness that I forgot to mention, is my age, is the following. When we bring an issuance out to offer to you or prospects and clients, you can be assured that we have a lot more money in it than our investors. We eat our own cooking. So we are really saying, look, this is what we're doing. Come join us. Come and join us. Come and co-invest with us. The institutions don't give you that opportunity.
I think too, from a portfolio construction standpoint, if your portfolio is just stocks and bonds and not incorporating private equity or these types of opportunities, I think you're missing out on a huge value proposition there. Now, the whole time I was listening to Michael think, I mean, in Michael's presentation, I was thinking of a quarterback athlete that just won the Super Bowl, Tom Brady, because to have 4 unicorns and 2 publicly traded companies over $1 billion, you're really looking at, you know, an investor who is at the caliber of someone like Tom Brady, a quarterback. And I always say the whole weekend going into the weekend, everyone was saying, don't bet against Tom Brady. I'm definitely going to join Michael and be on his team when it comes to ITM. Any other questions before we wrap it up? You'll also see, so on the tables there, you'll see the monthly newsletter that I put together from our wealth management team here in Cayman and Clarion, the team of CFAs that we have building portfolios for clients and then any prospective clients that you may have. Love to sit down with you, have a chat. If you want someone to take a look at what you have going on in your own portfolio or your own wealth situation, please let us know. We're here to help, and we're right here in Cayman. So thank you so much, everyone in person. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Tuula, for zooming in. And thank you to everyone on Zoom that watched.
Did we have another question over here?
Is there one more? Did I not
saw-
see it because of the light?
I saw a hand raise.
Okay, wait,
right.
Michael, you still there?
I'm here.
Okay, one more.
Okay, make it an easy one. Not difficult.
You gave the metaphor Steve Jobs, Apple. What is the metaphor you would like to leave? Michale Lee Chin? What?
What the legacy I'd like to leave is that this person he identified a framework that's relevant to being a great investor, and he identified a framework, characteristics of what great businesses look like, and he was able to codify those frameworks, and he lived them. And he has the evidence of the validation of the framework would be the outcomes. In this case, to date, we have 4 unicorns and 2 multi-billion-dollar businesses. And by the way, guys, does anyone in the audience know what a herd of unicorns is called? Does anyone know a herd of unicorns?
Anybody?
No? Come on, guys.
No one here, Michael?
Eh?
No, couldn't come up with it. I failed that task when you asked me. So
Come
I'll
on,
leave it to
guys,
someone else.
get used to them, right? You don't know what a herd is? Well, we at Portland, we breed unicorns. And a herd of unicorns is called, and when I first saw, 2 months ago, I didn't know what a herd of unicorns is called. It's called a blessing. Really, a blessing. Google it, you'll see. So it's a blessing of unicorns. And my job is to breed unicorns. And have fun doing it by staying in my lane.
And I think as an organization too, one key thing you left off the end of that, Mr. Lee Chin, is that you're not one of those people who keep it to yourself. You are open and honest and share it with everybody who comes in your path. And that's what we thank you for today.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.